Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mr. Merrick,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Yeah.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Ms. Parker,
Here.
thank you, Mr. Self,
Here.
Mr. Elkins,
Here.
Ms. Cordova,
Here.
and Mr. Rackler.
Here.
All right,
Okay, and that's forum. If you'd please stand, Councilman Self is going to lead us in the invocation and Councilman Rackler will lead us in the pledges.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful we could all be here tonight. Just be with us in our decision-making process, our constituents, our community at the forefront of all the decisions and you, Heavenly Father, being right there at the forefront as well. Just be with us, help us make great decisions for our community and be with us tonight. Thankful for your son dying on the cross. It's in your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the state symbol of perfect friendships among United cultures.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be here this evening. We have a packed agenda, so we're going to get started. Our first item tonight is our public comment. The public has an opportunity to provide comment on subjects regarding city business. During the public comment period, speakers' comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the mayor and/or councilors request more information. The time limit is given in an effort to allow public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt yet efficient manner. All speakers must sign in at the beginning of the meeting. Topics are limited to 6 speakers per topic. I have 3 persons signed up right now, and Ms. Baca, you are the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm just gonna read this so I can stay within my 3 minutes. I would like to address areas that I am continually hearing meeting after meeting that I believe are concerning. As I am going through these areas, I implore you to take a good reflective look at your service here on the council and ask yourself, are the choices I'm making in the best interest of the common good? Are you, being the steward our community has entrusted you to be, to get us back on track for a prosperous future? Let me start by saying, let the sleeping dog lie. When I say this, I am referring to the pool. I can't even count how many times I have heard that we need to look at funding to get it fixed. It has also been put out there that this needs to be achieved before next summer. Growing up, recreational and leisure activities came after the roof over our heads, shoes on our feet, and food in our stomachs. And I believe that this concept has totally been lost when it comes down to our community's needs. I keep hearing quality of life, and it seems that the pool is a big part of some individuals' quality of life. But let me say, my quality of life is having water to drink, shower, wash clothes, flush toilets, trash picked up, and decent roads to drive on. Definitely not filling a pool so that others can have an inexpensive babysitter during the summer. Believe me, if the inexpensive babysitter is not the man driving force for the pool to be open, then parents would gladly and willingly spend time with their children after work hours at Eastern Sanatorium, which is open to the community with the purchase of a community pass. Tuesdays through Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. for lap swimming and 7 to 9 p.m. for recreational swimming. The question that I have is what water will be used to fill the pool? The water that we have restrictions on, or the reuse water that is to be used for our parks and cemeteries? If it is the recreational restricted water, then I believe the detail shop behind the old newspaper building shouldn't have to haul water in for his business. And all resident owners should be able to ignore the restrictions and water their lawns when they feel the need. If the restrictions are ignored by some, then I would say that the lack of water does not ring true because the action is being taken here. Let's get our focus back to the common good so we can get growth in our town. We need a town where businesses want to come in, and I'm not talking businesses like the dispensaries that have flooded our town. I'm talking restaurants, clothing stores, businesses that give the current establishments competition so that services gets better. The focus should start by getting our infrastructure established once again. The first would be to get a water plan in place. It's sad when we don't have a 1-year water plan, but we are pushing a 9-month plan for the pool opening next summer. There needs to be much more effort into getting at the least a 20-year water plan in place to do this. And to do this, we need to trim out the unnecessary items that are wasting time and money. Second item would be the trash. We still have dumpsters with no bottoms or lids. I don't understand how we can continue to leave the bottomless dumpsters in use when we know half the trash falls out on the ground when being dumped. We should be proactive and determine what dumpsters can be moved around until we receive the new ones and get them distributed. Third would be the repair of the roads. It was a laughing joke that 400,000 might complete half a block. That alone should open eyes as to just how much is needed to repair all the streets. I want it known that I don't appreciate hearing that the louder you are, the more apt you are to get your roads fixed. If this is true, then I would like it on record that the north side of town needs to be put at the top of the list for street repairs. I can keep going on with emergency abatement of hazardous buildings, emergency vehicle replacements, wages, road signage, grass cutting, and everyone's favorite, the repair or replacement of the street sweeper. This is what I am getting at. Each and every one of us can either make Portales prosperous, or we can keep holding on by a thread. It all boils down to priorities. Are we willing to get them aligned correctly, or are we going to wake that dog and have him bite us because we choose to neglect the real needs of our town? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. and Council, for listening to the concerns. And I hope that they are at your forefront whenever you are choosing to vote on decisions that come before you.
Thank you, Ms. Waka. Commissioner Garza, I have you next.
I want to throw that to the mayor.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, good evening. I am Mike Morris, Mayor of Clovis, and I'm Chairman of the Water Authority. And I'm here this evening to express my support for you and your ongoing efforts to address water scarcity. As you know, Clovis stands with you as a committed partner by way of the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority. And I and the authority understand the importance of completing the U Pipeline project for Portales' future water security and water sustainability. State of New Mexico understands the critical need for the U Pipeline and has committed 15% construction costs. And the primary way that they deliver that is through Water Trust Board grant agreements like the one on your agenda tonight. So I hope that later down the agenda, you'll approve that resolution. Also down the agenda tonight is your consideration for your annual membership dues to the Water Authority. So on that item, I'll just say we're grateful for your partnership, and the other members are committed to completing this project with you. But before you ever get to those business items down the agenda tonight, it appears as though you're going to hear a presentation from our friends in Quay County. And they're likely to tell you that they want the progress with the U Pipeline halted. You see, the Water Authority operates in transparency. We have the best there is in the way of design and engineering teams. Our robust support from federal and state government is well documented, yet our friends from Quay County are going to tell you tonight that they've discovered some problems with the project and that they want it halted. This is nothing new coming out of Quay County. They've unsuccessfully opposed this project for a very long time, and I can only imagine that all they can wish to accomplish here tonight is to maybe grab a headline or seek to create confusion around our critically necessary project. But you're not confused, and I'm not confused about why we're building this project, why we're developing the U Pipeline. And on our side of the issue, it's history. the primary purpose of the reservoir, the committed partnership of the United States of America through a federal authorization and a completion agreement, the committed partnership of the state of New Mexico, as I mentioned before, and underpinning our motives is the critical need for drinking water in our communities, and we owe it to the residents of our communities to deliver. And so that's why we're doing it. But something that I don't want anyone confused about here this evening, as harsh as it is for me to say it, the time for mincing words and being polite is over. When our friends, and they are our friends and our neighbors in Quay County, say they don't want that pipeline constructed, what they're really saying is they would deprive you and I and our communities of water security in favor of a few more feet of recreational water in that reservoir. And that's a pretty nasty and misguided message coming from our fellow New Mexicans, the one that we'll work to forgive them for. But we are building the U pipeline. Our residents are depending on us to do that. And we are building it. Thank you for your support, your continued support, and you have mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, that concludes my list of public comment. My next item is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of August 20th, 24.
I know that we approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lopez, a second by Mr. Robinson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, that's right. We need to do a roll call since we have people on Zoom. So, thank you.
All right. Mr. Merrick, Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
thank you, sir. Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler.
Yes.
Okay, those minutes are approved. Now moving to the presentation part of our agenda. And our first one is the Quay County Commission. Mr. Frost, I think we agreed to 10 minutes, correct?
I'll do my best, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Warren Frost. I'm here on behalf of Quay County, the village of Logan. What we're doing here tonight is that during the last couple of months, we in Quay County have discovered some new information on the pipeline and kind of what's going on with the pipeline and their efforts. And we believe that it raises substantial concerns, significant concerns about the continued viability of the pipeline project. And we want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. We're here to make sure that you know what's going on in the pipeline project. And so in the future, you can make informed decisions about what you're going to do with your water situation. We don't know if you're not being informed, if some of us aren't paying attention, but here are the facts that we've derived from the pipeline's own documentation. Between 2005 and 2022, all of the funding for the pipeline and all the planning was based upon the assumption that U Lake water was of a high enough quality that you could just do conventional treatment of the water. And that essentially almost 100% of that water could be used after it was treated to come to Taos and Clovis. In 2022, Jacobs Engineering, who is the engineer for the pipeline group, did a whole set of water quality tests. And they discovered that the water quality of Ute Lake had substantially deteriorated. There was over twice the amount of total dissolved solids that's allowable by the EPA. There's significant increases in alkalinity, sulfate, chlorides, And they detected two PFAS chemicals in the water there at the lake. Now, I don't have to tell you all about PFAS chemicals in light of your dealings with the Air Force. So what that means is, and what they determined was that a conventional methods of treatment were no longer appropriate. So they went through and did a complete study of all the different approaches. And as the study that I provided you as part of your packet says, is that they've determined that they're going to use a microfiltration reverse osmosis system. Now, that is a very technical term that I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you. I know that it's substantially more expensive, and they've determined that this system is going to need at least 4 injection wells there north of Clovis. So as they went through this process, they determined that instead of about $270 million for this treatment plant, it's going to cost somewhere between $400 and $600 million. They admit that they don't have the money for that. They don't have that between $400 and $600 million. They don't even have a design for their treatment plant as we stand here now. They're in the process of going to Logan, and they're designing a mini treatment plant that they're going to build down there by the lake and see if their proposed design is going to work. Now, not having the ability or not having a design and $400 to $600 million seems like a big deal to us. When you spend that much money on the treatment system, inevitably, the amount of money that goes to the consumer to buy the water is going to go up. As I pointed out in the packet, the local water, if assuming their best case scenario, the Talus water is going to go up 80%. Clovis's water is going to go up 400%. Now, when people in Clovis start realizing that that's what's going to happen, I think that's going to be a major concern of theirs. And when people in Clovis determine and Clovis that they're fixing to drill 4 6,000 feet deep injection wells through the aquifer north of Clovis to inject 1.5 million gallons of polluted brine water into their own ground, I think that's going to raise some concerns. And it should. The other issue that seems really problematic to us is EPCOR. You know, EPCOR, as you know, takes care of all of Clovis's water. They're in the process, they've taken over and are helping Texaco out. And I understand that you've had conversations with them. They do not have an agreement with EPCOR to buy the water from EPCOR. You know, we've been very fortunate in our communities in eastern New Mexico with all these wind towers. Do you think that a developer of a wind tower or a wind farm, do you think they go and spend a single dollar on the ground before they've got somebody to buy that electricity? No, they're not going to build a wind farm hoping that somebody's going to buy the electricity at some point in the future. That's exactly what this pipeline group is doing. They don't have an agreement for EPCOR, who's going to take 70% of this water to buy the water. It doesn't make any sense. EPCOR right now is charging Clovis citizens $1.17 per 1,000 acre per 1,000 gallons. Under the best case scenario, with this new approach, the wholesale cost of water coming from this pipeline group is going to be $4.78 per 1,000 gallons. That's a 400% increase for people in Clovis. Do you think that EPCOR is going to buy that water from these guys? I don't know, but if they are, why don't they have an agreement right now while they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars? You know, you can't pick up the paper, the Eastern New Mexico News, without an article about Portales' water problems. And there's no question that you guys are struggling. But part of that is you don't have the water, but at least part of it's because of your infrastructure here in Portales, as I understand it. These guys on the pipeline are spending hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars a year building this pipeline. And what are they doing to help the citizens of Portales with their water problems? A prime example is what's called a Raw Water 3 pipeline. 2 months ago, they just agreed. They've given the contract out. They're gonna build 22 miles of pipeline north of Clovis that doesn't connect to anything. They don't have a treatment plant because they don't know how it's gonna work yet. They don't have anything on the north end. So they're gonna spend $48 million on 22 miles of pipeline that may never be used if they don't get their money. What could the city of Portales do with 10 million of that or 15 million to help with your infrastructure? Portales has got to start looking out for yourselves. And you seem to be blindly following these guys in Clovis who don't have any water problems. They're sitting there, of course, taking care of their water needs. They're not getting calls on weekends and at nights from constituents and from people from the city saying, what are you doing about our water problem? Their water problems are solved. And yet you continue to spend all this money on this pipeline when your own personal Portales City Council, Portales area is suffering. I don't know, eventually, maybe by some miracle, the money's available, you build the pipeline. But the problem is, it's probably not going to happen with this new information. And why are they spending all this money on a pipeline to nowhere when in fact they could be benefiting you? This is a prime example. Today, later on in this meeting, they're asking you to approve a $20 million.
It's your time, Warren.
No, sir, just give me one more second, please.
1 second.
They're asking you to approve a $20 million agreement with the Water Trust Board. Is any of that money going to you? Zero. It's all going to these guys. And they're not helping you with your own water problems. You guys can't go to the Water Trust Board as Portales. You can't go to the legislature because all of the money from the Water Trust Board and from the legislature is going to these guys.
Okay, Warren, we agreed to 10 minutes. Your 10 minutes are up. Thank you.
Man, I just want my request. They're gonna do that to us. They're gonna come down to Logan and spend $84 million in the spring. We've asked them not to do that until they get their act together, until they know what the plan is. They refused us. They're gonna come down and they're gonna spend that money so they can have this stranded asset to get more money in the future. We're asking you to instruct your members of the board to not build down in Logan and Clay County until such time as they know how much money this treatment plant is going to cost them, whether it's going to work or not.
Okay. Our next item is a presentation, Ms. Bailey, the Regional Behavioral Health Facility Update.
Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, yeah, it's good to be with you tonight. My name is Kate Bailey and I'm a partner to public health consulting with Michigan Health. I'm here working with a consortium of local governments, you can see their logos pictured there on the slide. We have 5 counties and 3 municipalities doing it on this project. And I just want to say that I do similar work like this across the country, and this level of collaboration and partnership is really impressive. So I want to commend you, the city of Portales, for your commitment to this work. Go to the next slide, please. So very quickly, I will touch on context crisis system transformation. We'll talk about phase 1 of the behavioral health facility, which is the crisis triage center. Go into a little bit of financial projections and funding resources, and then workforce development, and we'll stand for any questions. Next slide, please. So we are a public benefit corporation. We'll go to the next slide, please. There are a few of our team members that have been involved with this project since the beginning. And the next slide, please. And I just wanted to give you some context. So this is part of a series of presentations that we've been giving to the local governments that have been involved in this project. By way of update in terms of where we've come from, where we are now, and where we are going. So as you can see on there, we are just about rounding it out at the end of the month with Fort Sumner in the background. Next slide, please. So for context, I'd like to draw your attention to this intentionally busy and chaotic slide here, this diagram that really illustrates
You're just making it more confusing there.
But it really illustrates the experience of someone who's having a mental health crisis or maybe a substance use crisis, and their experience really is messy and chaotic with the systems that we've traditionally had in place, which include mainly all roads leading to the hospital emergency department. You see there all the pink lines coming in there, whether it's by police drop off or someone coming in with themselves or their family, or what have you. But really, it's not the optimal place for someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis or a substance use crisis. I had the pleasure of being part of the feasibility study at the beginning of this project 2 years ago, and heard from numerous law enforcement officials and healthcare folks that both said the same thing. The hospital emergency department is not the right place. We're not equipped to provide the care needed in a mental health or substance use crisis. And so oftentimes it would result in either someone being transferred somewhere else, which could be as far away as Las Cruces or Albuquerque, being referred elsewhere, maybe for follow-up with outpatient care, or really no services were able to be offered. And so if we could go to the next slide, please, you could see what we call the crisis flow, or the ideal system of crisis care. And really it looks a lot better than the messy chaos, where we can identify people early in their stages of crisis. Before an emergency room visit occurs. There's call centers now. You may or may not be aware of call centers such as 988, which replaced the National Suicide Hotline, that are available where folks can call and speak with trained counselors. There are mobile crisis teams in certain communities, as you have here, that actually accompany law enforcement to 911 calls that have to do with mental health. And so they're able to, in the field, be right there with the person and help them to de-escalate the situation. And then we have crisis stabilization and receiving facilities. So unlike a hospital emergency room, these facilities are intended for this exact purpose. And they are staffed for that, they're equipped for that, and that's their goal, is to help to stabilize people in crisis. And then, of course, post-crisis support, the ongoing care that all of us need, to be well in terms of getting access to providers and having regular appointments with the different treatment providers that we need. And next slide, please. So when we originally did the feasibility study in 2022, it revealed a lot of need across these 4 counties. At the time it was 4, and then one later. And so the recommendations for the regional behavioral health facilities span a lot of different care areas. I won't go through them all, but as you can see there was inpatient hospital care, outpatient care, and so on. And with this, we were able to, with the consortium of governments, go to the governor and request funding for this project. And when it was awarded, it was $10 million. And it was less than the ask. However, it is enough for phase 1. In phase 1 is what you see there, crisis triage center. And the reason that this was selected was, there's several reasons, and I'll walk through them. But
One is that it's a good fit for the funding that was available and allows for something to get in place to address the chaotic and messy experience that we saw. If you go to the next slide, please. So crisis triage centers are not new in New Mexico. There are a few. Doña Ana County is relaunching its crisis triage center right now this year. There's crisis response at Santa Fe. And then behavioral health crisis center just opened up in Bernalillo County as a joint collaboration between UNF and the county. And so, if you go to the next slide, please. One of the things that changed, and one of the reasons that pointed towards this being the best phase one, was that crisis triage centers, there was legislation changed in 2023, where previous to this, individuals had to voluntarily want to go to that type of center. And in a crisis, sometimes that's not the easiest decision to make, is to seek treatment. And so individuals were still being taken, and Doña Ana County is a good example. They had a crisis triage center, but because individuals who were in law enforcement custody could not be brought there, they were still going to the emergency department and to the detention centers. And that traffic, that population did not get rerouted to the crisis triage. So there was some advocacy, there was some work at the legislative level to get this changed. So now these centers can accept individuals who are coming with law enforcement, what we call an involuntary admission. And so that is good news, because it means now there's another option aside from the hospital and the detention center. We should go to the next slide, please. So what we're projecting are two different types of services for this center. One is what we call observation service. So this provides like a short-term stabilization within 24 hours. And individuals actually, they're in a comfortable recliner chair, and they can be stabilized, and then a treatment plan put into place, and we can be discharged home. But there's also an option for residential care, which is overnight care. And that's where individuals are in bed and they're receiving care until up to 14 days. And we recommend and are searching for an operator that can provide care for both adolescents and adults. If we know this is a huge issue, especially for youth who have to be placed sometimes even farther away than adults, because it's just the care for these subjects. So, next slide, please. So, the consortium of local governments did purchase a plot of land. It's about 18 acres right across from Plains Regional Medical Center in Clovis, and also across from the Roosevelt General Hospital Clovis Clinic, which is very beneficial for kind of collaboration between the two. If someone comes to the crisis triage center and they have a medical emergency, the emergency room is right there. If someone goes to the emergency room and it's only a mental health emergency, they can be transferred over to the crisis triage center. Next slide, please. So the cost of that land was $425,000, and that has been secured, and then the land has been purchased. The estimated square footage for this first phase of the facility is about 12,500 square feet, and the cost of that we're projecting about $8.5 million. So you can see that the combination of those two still is able to be funded with the $10 million in capital funds that was secured, which is great news. Next slide, please. Some of the key strategies that will be important to making this a success is a little bit of what I said before, is this law enforcement partnership. So tomorrow, actually, I have the pleasure of helping to facilitate a strategy session for law enforcement from across those counties and cities to come together and say, how are we going to make this work? How is this facility going to fit into what we do? Because it really needs to serve law enforcement well. So that's just as easy or easier to bring someone there than to go to the hospital or to the detention center. And we also, the consortium has secured funding for purchase of 2 vans, which will be able to bring people to and from the facility who couldn't otherwise get there. It'll be important to have the proper service mix if we need to offer services for both substance use and mental health, and then staffing. That's all, like, the next big question, right? You can build it, great. How are you going to staff? How are you going to run this? So we have been collaborating as a consortium with Eastern New Mexico University, Clovis Community College, even with the high schools and the rural schools, on career pathways in behavioral health, and inspiring and building those pipelines through a kind of grow your own approach. So that individuals who live here and grow up here are inspired to enter these fields and then work here in this facility and in related services. And then collaboration will be key, so that behavioral and physical healthcare providers are referring their patients to the center, and social service providers are providing other services that are important to mitigating the crisis, like food security and housing. Next slide, please. So a little bit into funding, if you could go to the next slide, thank you. So I just wanted to show you all of the funds that have been secured for this project. So we talked about the $10 million in capital outlay. There's also 1.85 million that has been secured from the managed care organizations in the state Medicaid program. Real briefly, these organizations were mandated by the state to reinvest some dollars because of their performance in their contracts, and some of those funds are coming to this facility. We secured a $2 million grant from the Health Resources and Services Administration, which has been funding the workforce development work, as well as some other services that we got going right away after the huge need was unveiled in the feasibility study. And then opioid settlement funding. You can see there's an asterisk there because we're updating this number, but there's been a commitment by the local governments to put all or some of their opioid settlement dollars, including from the city, toward this project. And so that's ongoing funding. I should mention as well that for the next 15 or 16 years, and could be more as more opioid settlements may be approved, but that will continue to come to the local governments and help to support this facility. Next slide, please. And then I'll touch on workforce development to a little more specifics. So with Eastern New Mexico University, we've launched paid local internship opportunities so that social work students are building their professional networks in these communities. So when they're doing their junior and senior year field work, that they're being placed locally. We found that they weren't all being placed locally. So now if they're able to be supported with stipends, they may not have to, leave the area, go back and live with mom and dad in that field work, because the 16 hours a week they can be paid for. And so we're very hopeful that that will result in future employment in this area. As you know, you may be aware, Masters in Social Work degree program was launched at Eastern this semester, which is very exciting. And then there's been a collaboration with CCC so that students who leave their associate's degree program can seamlessly complete their next 2 years at Eastern in social work. Next slide, please. A little bit more about CCC. We've added a new course called Introduction to Social Work and Human Services. We're also launching paid local internships for behavioral science students. And the nursing program has added a new track for mental health nursing because nurses will be a key workforce for this facility. Next slide, please. And at the high school level, so we did a presentation to Columbus High School with 80 students, a panel presentation of social workers from diverse backgrounds, which was very well received. We're planning a similar effort with Tallahassee High School, and with the rural schools, we're actually planning a rural healthcare career day for students from all the Rec 6 schools will be bussed in to get inspired about healthcare careers. Next slide, please. And then I just want to touch on the financial modeling and timeline. If you could go to the next slide. So as I mentioned before, patient volumes will be key. The most expensive facility is an empty one, right? Running it empty without anyone in it. So in order to have the systems change that's needed, law enforcement needs to be engaged, healthcare providers need to be engaged, the general public needs to be aware of this facility, and patient volumes need to be high. Medicaid will be a key payer, so getting really good Medicaid rate for this facility will be key. And then when we say commercial payers, we're also looking for employer sponsored health plans such as your Blue Cross and your United and Aetna to be key contributors for the financial performance. Next slide, please. So when we look out over 5 years, we're projecting initial losses financially, and then coming to a positive cash flow in year 4. And what's underneath all of this really is the capacity ramp-up. So starting out at about 60% capacity, ramping up to 90% capacity in the facility. And that's very typical in healthcare. It takes some time to staff up, and it takes some time to get the patient volumes up. And so you might be saying, okay, well, what are you going to do in those first few years? But that's where some of the opioid settlement dollars can come into play, and funds like from the legislature with SB 7, which was, I think 2 legislative sessions ago, but it provided startup funds for new healthcare services. So those are the type of funds that will be tapped into to start this off. Next slide, please. And then, as I said, Medicaid will be a major payer, and there's some of the other payers listed up there, but it'll be very important to secure those good rates. Okay, next slide, please. and staffing. So you can see just real briefly there, but RN, so nurses, LICSWs, it's licensed social workers, peer specialists who are individuals who are in recovery themselves are a key workforce. They've shown some progress in their own recovery, certified and trained, and now able to help others to achieve their wellness and recovery. And so on and so forth. You can see down the line here. Staffing, of course, is the major cost of operating the facility. I think this might be the last one, just to give you a look ahead of where we're going. So looking to award a design build team, so an architect and builder in October. And then going through the design process and securing all of the permits and approvals that are needed to begin construction in September. Estimating about 12 months for construction, and then go live in November. You could just go to the next slide. I think there is lots of things. Something interesting.
Yes,
I just have a couple quick questions. You mentioned that, and maybe I misunderstood you, that we have a mobile crisis unit here.
So there are
Wasn't aware of
crisis
that.
services. I have to say that I know that they're in Clovis with Clovis Police Department. I have heard that they're with the Dallas Police Department as well. No, that is not
Okay,
correct.
okay, I was just making sure that was something I had not heard, and I was like, I'd like to know if that's something we got going on, which is great, but. The other thing was your location, your pin where your location is, that, if I'm correct, that's already a full shopping center. Did you just buy one of the buildings that's there? Across from the hospital, or is there vacant land there? I'm not
There, it
remembering.
is vacant.
It was vacant, okay,
it's on the north side of the hospital, correct? It's north of Dillon Street over there.
north of Dillon, okay. It didn't, the pin kind of looked different. Okay.
Further here.
That looked like it was in front of also across from.
Yeah, I bet it's next to Allsops is my guess. Mhm.
Gotcha, thanks.
Any other questions?
No questions, just a comment. This is really great work that you guys are doing, and I love the collaboration from all of the departments and the communities. It's a well-needed service in all communities, so I applaud your work.
Thank you, ma'am. Get that. Now to a very important part of this agenda. Ms. Hill, will you come forward, please? We'd like to recognize Amanda Hill for 5 years of service to the city of Dallas. And we'd like to present you with this certificate. It reads in recognition of 5 years of your faithful service, outstanding performance and commitment to excellence to the city of Dallas. September 18th, 2019, I believe was your start date. And so we want to present you with this certificate and a 5-year gauge. Thank you. We need to start putting them on the first part of the agenda. Okay, we're gonna move now to discussion items. Oh, I'm sorry. The fire department chief, there's 2 items that we're gonna strike from the agenda. I apologize for that. Chief Kathy's out today, sick, so he wanted to postpone that till the next meeting. And then under action items, Ms. Diaz wants to be on the first meeting in October. And so we're not gonna deal with those 2 today. I apologize for not making that clear. So now we're going to go to discussion items, and our first item under discussion is a water update. Mr. Moyer.
Mayor, Pro Tem, council members. So I'm here to give the update for Christmas as we said, the training this week. Conveniently. If you notice on our Facebook page every Tuesday now, we are putting up the water levels in the tanks. So currently the tank level this morning was 27.3. The GPMs was 1934 gallons per minute. Average tank level for the month of August was 27.19, and the average flow was 27.1 gallons per minute. So current projects they have going on is water distribution study that
is currently going on, SCADA upgrades, the lead and copper inventory. Obviously system maintenance, scheduled sample for reporting, and fire hydrant repair replacement. And on that, we've done since 2024, 8 hydrants replaced. And then there's one going in within the next 2 weeks. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll be back to you. Sir. Yes, sir. You'll probably have to check with Chris, but I would like an update on the valves we've been waiting on since we were elected. But there's supposed to, these 2 large valves that we're gonna. The isolation improvements. Meters. The flow meter. The flow meters. So. There was an issue with the company. I know that for a fact, getting the flow meters. We did get the flow meters, however, they're not working correctly right now. So that's a problem that we're working through.
But we got them and they are installed.
They
They're
are
just
installed,
non-operable.
They are not operational, not correct. Yeah. So electricians trying to figure that out, but we don't know if we're gonna have to go for flow meters.
Anything else for Chris on this item?
Can I ask on an update? EPCOR came and did an evaluation of our system. Have we heard anything back from them? Do we have
They're
any-
at our next, they're gonna be on our next meeting to present.
Okay.
On the 24th.
Yeah. We have talked, we did have a meeting with them, but there's still a lot of things.
Deep in the weeds.
But they will be on the agenda for the 24th for a presentation.
Perfect.
Anything else on this item? Okay. Our next item, Mr. Moyer, is the cemetery discussion.
So it has been brought up in council meetings, public works meetings about the condition of the cemetery. What I'm going to do is I'm going to form not a committee, but a task force, 2 to 4 month timeframe. And what I'm going to have them look at certain things, look at our cemetery resolution, make sure we can update it and plan for the expansion that we have coming up. Look at the enforcement of that resolution. Look at different things with maybe rates, how to handle volunteer work. So I am going to appoint community members and JC to that task force and have them report back to me, and then hopefully we can update the resolution, get the volunteer work, and make the improvements that we need to make. Any questions?
And you're thinking this, how long this process? I mean,
I want 2 to 4 months, just something very, very quick and simple. They have specific things to look at and then go from there.
and I know we've had a couple of different organizations reach out to volunteer, so that's a good idea to get that.
And I think we need to have a better way to handle the volunteer aspect of cemetery work.
It is my understanding, though, that the individual plots are the family's responsibility. So like, where my dad is, it's my responsibility to mow that. But. It's
Well,
not,
I think
it's not a
there's
perpetual care.
I think that there's a lot of confusion with regard to that. I think
Yeah,
a lot
and
of
that's what's
people
been
believe
said.
there is
That's-
perpetual care. And I know a lot of people take care of their own. I know when I was a kid, that was one of my mainstays was I would take care of plots for people, and I'd go mow, but I think there's some confusion and maybe that's what can,
That's what we're gonna try to clear up.
can clear up some of that. And, I think part of the problem is the city has a responsibility, but the city's a lot of times not involved in the process because it's taken care of through, Wheeler mortuary and that sort of thing. So I think
We
that's,
also go-
I think that's part of what,
Right.
city managers wanting to take
Because
on.
part of that resolution, there are things in there like benches and curbs and
Right.
stuff. And my question about that was, are you gonna remove the ones that are there? Because there's a lot of them out there.
That's something that we need to look at.
That whole south section that we call the new section
Right.
that grew up here. Yeah, there were supposed to be, everything was supposed to be flat, so that it was easier to maintain.
Right.
But,
Good luck with it.
thanks, sir. And then last one is your request permission to move forward with council.
Yeah, so first off, I'd like to thank Steve for all of his work for the city, but at the end of this year, he is no longer going to be, he's gonna go off into retirement. So with that, I'm gonna look. I just want to let everybody know that I'm gonna look at exploring hiring a staff attorney on the city payroll. And not contracting it out. I'm still working through the numbers, but I think it's gonna be one of those things that we will want to pursue. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, I got a question. Would I qualify for?
For that job?
Yeah.
Not sure, pass the bar.
No, you can't.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too. I think at the end of the day, it may
Maybe say.
be a really better deal. So. All right, that ends our discussion items. If there's no further questions on any of these items that Mr. Moore has brought up. And as I said, the RCCDC, actually Jody called me. She thought she was doing a presentation and not doing the leader request. So she's asked to be on the first meeting in October to do both. Probably she'll be ready for that. So next we'll go to finance, and Ms. Rivera has resolution 2024-26 to add and remove signatories for accounts at financial institutions.
Yes, good evening, council. This one is thankfully not a very lengthy one, but it's very much needed. I would like to ask for your approval of the resolution as this would allow us to add and remove signatories at all of the accounts are for that we have with the financial institution. And the names are listed on the resolution for your reference, and I'll answer any questions.
So I guess that last in bold says all other signatories will be removed. Okay.
That some accounts may list some names and some of them may not, so this bold would remove all others other than the ones that we're having.
We did have to add that because the bank will not remove the signators if it doesn't say, so that may be why it didn't happen in the past, so
Right.
with that statement, it should suffice.
Good. I know that some of these accounts, I met with First Finance or Fidelity for about 2.5 hours in Albuquerque last week, just trying to get it straightened out to get to this point. So, but this also has other financing like this Fidelity. Any questions? If not, what's the pleasure of the council on resolution 2024-26?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Rackler, a second by Mr. Self. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker, Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Now we're going to go to the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority. The first item is the request for approval of resolution number 2024-27. A resolution authorizing and approving a water project fund loan grant agreement by and between the New Mexico Finance Authority and the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority, and joined by its members, the municipalities of Clovis, Elida, Portales, Texaco, New Mexico, in an amount not to exceed 20 million, including a loan amount not to exceed 2 million, and a grant amount not to exceed 18 million for water project fund loan grant number water WPF 6275. And I think before we discuss this, we have our representatives here. I would like to give them a moment to respond to the comments made earlier in the meeting, if they so choose. I talked with Mr. Merrick about that the other day, I met with Mr. Lucero the other day, and I visited with Mr. Ortega. So, Mr. Moore, if you don't if you don't mind, I'd like to ask them if they would like to make some comments, and at that point, also, if anybody here on the council would like to ask any questions based on the presentation previously this morning. So, does anybody want to start? Does anybody want to make a comment?
I can start.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
All right, as the representative for the city of Portales on the Ute Water Project, I was just going to kind of give everybody a little bit of update on what's been going on. You know, the Ute Reservoir was built in 1963, and it was designated as a state park in 64. It was built by the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission without federal funding. And it was built with the intentions of supplying water to eastern New Mexico communities, and its secondary use was recreation. New Mexico communities in and along the east side of the Rocky Mountains will have an increasingly difficult time obtaining the supply needed to provide for their municipal needs as insufficient groundwater supplies continue to decline. Ute Reservoir's annual yield of 24,000 acre-feet is intended to provide a renewable source of water for the number of eastern slope communities. The New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission owns and operates the Ute Reservoir. The annual yield of Ute Reservoir is currently under contract to the Ute Water Commission that has an option under the contract to purchase the entire 24,000 acre-feet of annual yield. Development of this water source represents the best renewable source for intended municipal uses in this region. The authority member communities will be allocated 16,415 acre-feet of this water. So about 68% of the total 24,000 acre-feet, the Interstate Stream Commission says is the annual yield. One rain event this year on August 10th raised the reservoir by 3 foot, or almost 19,000 acre-feet, more than our total yearly allocation. And the reservoir sits currently at around 164 acre-feet in the reservoir. And an acre-feet of water is 325,850 gallons. Mr. Frost, in his comments, talked about how the project was being started without the whole project being funded or designed completed. We are in dire need of a fresh water supply, and I feel it is critical that we push forward on every phase of this pipeline instead of sitting on our hands waiting until all of the stars align. You know, when they built the tunnel from France to England, they started on each continent and met in the middle. I think it's a pretty simple thing for them to be able to start phases of a pipeline and make them connect where they need to without being built in continuity. And the more that we can do in this type of building, the more advanced we are in getting this project done. So, yes, there were some things that showed up in our water quality samples that were taken in 2022. This was not hidden. It was all put out to the public. There, for one thing, in 2005, when the initial project or the initial treatments were sampled, the reservoir was sitting at pretty close to a full capacity, 200,000 acre-feet. In 2022, the storage was roughly at 135,000 acre-feet. So our TDS concentrations in the reservoir, which is total dissolvable solids, it's been high and is above the US EPA secondary maximum contaminant levels, or MCL, of 500 milligrams per liter. But it should be noted that TDS, chloride, sulfate, and alkalinity compounds are not a health hazard to human consumption, but are aesthetic. But it is the aesthetic goal for the taste of the water to remove those. There are no primary MCLs or maximum contaminant levels of these compounds regulated by the United States EPA. There are several other communities around us that are having to go with this type of filtering system that we're using. The city of Alamogordo, El Paso. And one other thing that needs to be brought up is that back in 2005, PFAS compounds were not a known concern, or were not being regulated by the EPA in 2005. So therefore, testing for the PFAS compounds did not take place in 2005. So we don't have a baseline to compare our levels that we're showing now. And there is some PFAS levels in the Ute Reservoir. But this is one of the things that reverse osmosis can take care of. There was concern brought up about the deep well injection sites. And it's understandable that there could be concerns regarding the deep well injection, as there are many misconceptions that deep well injection will contaminate local groundwater. However, deep well injections for waste disposal are conducted all over the region. In fact, there's a similar disposal well near the village of Logan that disposes of brackish water and has for over 20 years. These disposal wells are 4,000 to 6,000 feet deep, with multiple confining layers between the disposal zone and the zones that contain suitable drinking water. These deep injection wells are significantly regulated by the New Mexico Environmental Department, requiring annual integrity testing to ensure that the contamination is not occurring. Conventional treatment methods, coupled with changing the community's current approach to water disinfection, would meet the current US EPA's primary drinking water standards. And an extensive alternative analysis were performed in 2023, including several community stakeholders from city council members, city water system operations staff, and Cannon Air Force Base. The analysis involved a holistic look at what was the most beneficial and cost-effective approach for the water treatment process. I apologize for my voice. I've somehow contacted COVID this last week, and I'm at home trying to recover from that, so my voice is a little gruff. So the water treatment plant alternative selection, at the direction of the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Board and Eastern New Mexico Rural Water System Water Treatment Plant Alternatives Working Group was formed to study and evaluate all water treatment options. The group consisted of participants from each of our member communities, Cannon Air Force Base, EPCOR, water experts, and the authority. City of Portales participants included the Portales City Manager, Public Works Director, Waterworks Manager, Mayor, and City Council member. City of Texaco participants included Jerry Johnson and Max Carter. At the end of months of work and site visits to water treatment plants, 4 alternatives were scored. And that was conventional treatment with enhanced coagulation, microfiltration, reverse osmosis treatment with deep well injection, conventional treatment with granular activated carbon, and microfiltration reverse osmosis with solar evaporation ponds. After months of investigation and collecting information and data and expert analysis, the Water Treatment Plant Alternatives Working Group unanimously recommended membrane reverse osmosis treatment to the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority Board. The ENMUWA board received wastewater treatment plant alternatives working group updates while the months-long fact gathering occurred and received full presentations on the wastewater treatment or water treatment plant alternatives, process and results. Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Association board took official action to move forward with membrane RO treatment. The membrane filtration will be able to retain about 93% of the water treated. And Mr. Frost made the comment that we should be able to treat almost 100%. Well, any kind of treatment process is going to have wastewater. And 93% is very efficient, and that is part of the reason that they are designing and building a micro treatment facility to put at the lake to be able to tweak and fine tune that process to even hopefully get it even better than that. And addressing the statement that the engineers don't even know if the treatment will work, that statement's false. Our engineering team is confident that both treatment options will work and produce a water that meets the current primary drinking water standards. Through our alternatives analysis process, the project stakeholders unanimously agreed that membrane reverse osmosis treatment provided the greatest benefit and the most cost-effective approach for the long-term use of projects. The capital cost estimates for the water treatment plant are based on planning level design criteria and represent a class 4 cost estimate defined by the Association of the Advancement of Cost Engineering, AACE, where this level of cost estimates typically has an accuracy range of less than 30% to greater than 50%. The current proposed membrane reverse osmosis treatment process has a capital cost of approximately $420 million in today's dollars. The conventional treatment process has a capital cost of approximately $300 million in today's dollars. But this cost does not include the additional capital costs that the member communities would need to invest in converting their systems to the alternative disinfection approach required for the conventional treatment process. The pilot treatment plant are common in the industry when evaluating a new source of water. And the pilot treatment plan allows the engineers to refine and assume design criteria to ultimately optimize the treatment process for final design. The pilot treatment plant can lead to significant cost savings of the full-scale treatment plant by removing conservatism and leveraging real data for the treatment plant design. So we're designing and we'll test a smaller version of the treatment plant on the skid. That's all put together on a skid that'll be moved in and at the reservoir to make the process so it can be refined and tweaked for optimum efficiency before the large scale plant is built. Our goal is to have the smallest percentage of wastewater possible. And Mr. Frost also brought up the cost of water, and the rates that he was quoting for Clovis are incorrect. Right now, EPCOR's charges are $3.93 per thousand, up to 4,500 gallons. And then it's $4.92 per thousand from 4,501 to 15,000 gallons. In Portales, we have a minimum charge of $18.01 for the first 3,000 gallons, then $265 per thousand from 3,000 to 10,000, then $492 from per thousand for 10,000 to 30,000. So just to sum it all up, we have a lot invested in this pipeline, and it is critical that we keep moving forward on it because our aquifer continues to deplete. And this was driven home to many of our senators and representatives in the nation's capital in a recent trip. And we have received feedback from them that they're continuing to push forward on completing the funding for this. And I think that it is something that we need to continue to move forward with. So therefore, it's my recommendation that we move forward with both of these.
Thank you, Eldon. I appreciate that update. Briefly, do Jim or Orlando, briefly, do you have anything to add?
You, Mr. Mayor, city council members, just to clarify a couple of things to support Eldon's comments. We looked at 4 alternatives. We looked at many things through that working group over several months. And we ended up with 4 alternatives that Member Merrick mentioned. We can build a conventional water treatment plant, but the quality of the water is not going to be very suitable to the citizens of our communities. The water will be hard. It'll taste a little bit different than what we're accustomed to with this very good groundwater that we enjoyed all of our lives. The hardness will actually build up in your water heaters and your dishwashers and everything else, unless you have another filtration system within your home, and not everyone can afford that. All of that was taken into account when we were doing this work. The conventional water treatment would also require a chloramine system at each of our member communities connection points, where it would be treated with chloramine to be able to be blend groundwater with be able to blend groundwater with surface water, and that would be an additional cost. Although the project would pay for that equipment installation, but the communities would have to do the operation and maintenance of that from then on. So that was an additional burden that we felt would be to the communities in taking care of those additional systems. So after all was said and done, it was unanimous from everyone that was involved in that several months long work in coming up with the best alternative for our member communities and the residents of our communities. So I wanted to clear that up. It's very discouraging because we worked so hard in trying to get this project accomplished so we can have water security for our communities. To have these folks from Logan come here very selfishly and tell you to stop building this project so they can have continue to have their recreation. The reason you're hearing more about this is because we're there. In fact, today we spent most of the day there with 10 interested contractors from all over the country looking at the project, because we're looking at moving forward with going out to bid soon on Raw Water 1, which is from the intake facility all the way to the base of the caprock. We're looking at completing the design on the 2 pump stations and Raw Water 2 that takes us out to the caprock. We invited these contractors, invited many of them. We had 10 participate from across the country to look at those. We actually went out in the field so they could see the terrain. So the folks at Quake County are getting nervous because we're getting closer to completing this project. We've completed much of it. All of this work on the finished side is almost complete. Now we're working on the raw side coming out to the treatment plant. So, I have to say that we're doing very well. Our budget alone for this fiscal year 2025 for capital construction alone is $340 million in the bank, ready to be used for this project. We have 28 budgeted projects for this fiscal year. Every one of them are being worked on in some form or fashion. So we're making great progress. Our goal is to complete this project by 2031 and begin delivering water to our member communities. Just wanted to add that.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, Council, I will be very brief. Mr. Frost alluded to the fact that perhaps the councilman Merrick and myself are not representing you, fully or well. I've been on the Butte Authority board for, well, when I finish this term, it'll be 10 years. And I assure you that, I'm very passionate about water. I'm very passionate about Portales. And, the member, Merrick and myself represent Portales for the sole interest of Portales, but also for the member communities as well. We are all in this together. So, you know, if there's any question on, you know, our commitment to the authority and to Portales, you know, you all know me. I hope that you would come and talk to me, but if you need us to come into meetings, the administrator or myself can give you updates monthly, quarterly, biannually, however you want to make sure you feel like you're being informed of what's going on with this project. This very important project. You know, I find it, we're all on restrictions here in Portales. We have a problem. I don't know if Logan and Quay County have water restrictions. But I know we're gonna have to spend millions of dollars to have water. Because it's vital to our community. I don't know what they're doing up there in the north. They probably don't have a water problem that we do. We have to find every way, every means to get water. Use our aquifer to the best we can, and also bring this renewable water source to our communities. And I know Mr. Ortega fights for every dollar on a national level, state level, and community level to make this happen as quickly as possible. And that's because it's necessary.
Briefly, does anybody have any questions with regard to what we've
I
heard
just
tonight?
have one, Mr. Mayor. It gives me some pause that we tested the water in 2005 and then in 2020. We have to test our drinking water very regularly. Why was there such a gap between these? Why aren't we testing it more often than that? So we would have been, seems like we could have been way ahead of this. That's what I'm getting.
I can answer that. We tested it in 2005. I wasn't part of that, but it was tested in 2005. The project was moving a lot slower at the time, so I guess it was felt that it probably didn't need to be tested at the time. They were concentrating their efforts on other parts of the project. But there's no change, really. This isn't no new information. I mean, the quality of the reservoir changes when the reservoir goes down. TDS levels will rise as the reservoir fills. TDS levels will go down. So there's no new information here, and there's no smoking gun here that Quake County is saying that there is. It is what it is. TDS levels are common. High TDS levels are common for surface water. In some areas, it's even higher than what it is in the reservoir. In fact, Lake Meredith has greater challenges than we do, but they're combating those challenges. Lubbock has a reservoir south of Lubbock, Lake Allen Henry. They're using a membrane water treatment plant from the south that treats their water because of high TDS levels. Yeah, so this isn't anything new. It's just a different type of source. Again, we're accustomed to groundwater, and groundwater, we're fortunate. Our groundwater has been great. Very little treatment, chlorination, and it's safe, and it tastes good. It's great water, but surface water is a little different animal.
Hey, briefly, I want to wrap this up.
Mr. Frost made a statement about 22 miles of pipe that you guys are making. Where pipe to nowhere exactly? Can you address that?
None of our pipes are to nowhere. They're actually getting constructed, and they're gonna reach the reservoir at some point. Originally, the project started from the south and was traveling towards the reservoir. And the reason for that, it was because the federal funding was coming slow, and we would only construct what we could afford. So we felt that if we could connect all of the member communities together and start heading north, if there were any groundwater sources that could be located and purchased in the interim while we were continuing to construct the reservoir, they could be put into the pipeline and that pipeline infrastructure could be used. Well, when the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding came to play back in 2021, it changed everything. Our focus was construct it all at once, start from the north, continue from the south, work with Elidas lateral, Texaco's lateral, and get it all built at once. And that's what's changed. So there are no pipes to nowhere.
Yes, sir.
What's the plan as far as testing the lake again? I know.
We test it regularly.
Okay, and that's all public on the website or?
Oh, absolutely.
Why did they choose to just use the 2022 low? Is that because it was lower and it tested worse, or if there's more updated
Right.
testing that's?
We do have updated tests. I think it gets tested about every 3 months now.
Okay.
But that's when we first started retesting it. And we took those test results to begin with our analysis study.
Okay.
So actually, the TDS levels have improved since that snapshot that you're seeing.
Okay. One more thing on the pipeline, a lot of this is dependent on the federal government. Don't know what's gonna happen, with their budgets. With that probability that, we're waiting on the federal government, what are the chances that as all the community members go out and buy water rights, much like Lubbock and other communities, and put it in the pipeline? Has there been talks of using that as a resource, farmers along that path, instead of just relying on the U Lake, kind of double dipping or, utilizing those resources if we buy water rights along that path? What has that been talked about, or is that even consideration?
It has not by the authority, because our focus is on constructing the pipeline and getting that completed. We can't lose that focus. But there is another group in Curry County, the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy, that started doing some work in trying to secure groundwater for protection and preservation and possibly later use that could be tapped into two other piping. And let me go back to the first question that you asked, the federal funding. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocated $1 billion towards 5 rural water projects, one of the 5. And 2 of those projects were just about completed. A third was probably about 50 or 60% completed. And that began in 2021, fiscal year 21. And they were going to distribute that $1 billion over the course of 5 years. We've just completed year 3, and we're preparing our request for year 4 and then year 5. We met with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, Department of Interior, about a month ago in Washington, D.C. Member Merrick, if he's still on the line, he can recall this comment from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. They said, "We have never not completed a project." That was their statement to us. And so we're to get 2 more years of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding. We're hoping to get the bulk of that, and I believe there's about 300 million left there. And then we also receive congressional funding annually through the congressional budget. So our congressional senators and representatives, along with the other U.S. senators that belong to the other rural water projects, contribute towards the 5 projects. And they give the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation divvies that amount up and passes it along to our projects. The 2 years prior to the Investment and Jobs Act funding, we received 118 million one year, 120 million the second year, then the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding again. So there's funding from 2 sources there, and the president, of course, can also add to that budget.
Thank you. And 2 of those projects are about to be completed and off the books, where we would get, better, more allocations, after the.
All right. One more comment and then we're gonna go, I'm gonna segue right into this next deal. As we're talking about Water Trust Board application. Mr. Frost made a comment that I want to refute, that you guys are taking all the Water Trust Board money and we're not getting any of it. I know we got several $1 million granted to us this past year. There's $135 million nearly annually in the Water Trust Board that's distributed with a $20 million max. And it's not necessarily recurring, it fluctuates. And it's based on 9% of a severance tax distribution. And then like these lean years, or these, not lean years, these fat years, if you will, of funding, the legislature puts additional money into the Water Trust Board. And so we were funded for storage, we were funded for development. So that statement was totally false, meant to scare you guys. And I don't appreciate that. So I just wanted to be on the record to say that. Talking about Water Trust Board, Mr. Moyer, let's move to the item on the agenda. And thank you guys for your information.
So resolution, to approve the budget and financial plan for East Hampton School Water Authority. For the loan not to exceed 20 million, or amount not to exceed 20 million, not to exceed 2 in the grant.
Okay. And Mr. Ortega, what is this particular grant intended for?
Mayor Miller, City Council, the project description, the scope of work for this funding is for design, easement, and construction of the Eastern New Mexico Rural Water System transmission pipeline raw water line, which is a segment from the reservoir to the base of the Caprock. Raw water 2, which is the short piece going up to Caprock, and it also includes the intake pump station, Caprock pump station, and Caprock storage tanks. So it can be any of those.
Just to clarify what we're asking for. So any questions with regard to this resolution? What's the pleasure of the council? Resolution 2024-27.
I make the motion we approve.
Okay. Give that to Jake. And second by Mr. Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Robinson. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
yes,
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Next item is approval of Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority 2025 member contribution. Mr. Moyer.
So this is the invoice for our yearly dues for our member contributions for our allocation.
Do we want to pay our dues? What's the pleasure of the council?
Make a motion, we approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Rackler,
Second.
second by Mr. Self. We need another roll call since we have people on.
Yes. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson, Ms. Parker,
yes,
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Next is ICIP, presents the results of the city's ICIP ranking system for the projects in the infrastructure capital improvement plan. These rankings represent FY 2026. Ms. McVeigh.
Mayor and council. Okay, so departments came together and we decided to choose through all of our IPA projects and everything that we have, what would be our best top 25. And then I have given the top 10 on this slide. And so we have brought it to you to see your thoughts.
Hey, don't you have a committee that does this? Then, and then brings it to the council that includes council people? We've done that in the past.
Yes.
Strongly recommend we do that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think,
happy
I
to
think
do
I
that.
would like that done before we do this again. So who wants to volunteer to sit on that ICIP from the council? We've always had council involvement in this process and then bringing it back to the council.
How many do you need?
We normally choose 4.
Yeah, we can take 4, can't take 5.
I mean,
Okay, Mr. Rackler.
I'm in.
Mr. Merrick.
Sure.
I would too. I can step out of one thing.
Okay.
I've been on before.
Okay, let's, Ms. Cordova, so she's been on before, so she'll help with that. And then whichever one of you two.
You can have it.
Mr. Self. Okay. There's your committee. You'll get them together and then don't we have to have this, a public hearing on this?
We have to have this student.
Right, that's what I was thinking. So,
Yes.
you know, I mean, it's not that I don't trust staff, but I think that the council is gonna have, maybe have some different rankings than maybe staff does. And so I'd like to see the combination of the two. So if you'll get that group together, we'll bring this back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Williams, approve resolution 2024-28 to request NMDOT to allow speed enforcement devices.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Extra reading. I think everybody's read what I've got in there, but essentially this is. To get this done, DOT requires a request from the city. Speaking with the mayor, one of the rates, but you all, so that we could have requests from the city if we choose to let me go forward. This would be in place, the traffic cameras as well as any other signage lights, the radar flashing lights, any of that we want to put along a state highway right away, we have to have that permission. So this is just allowing me to continue with that process, if you choose to have me do that.
Questions?
just one. The majority of the reason for this is because several of the schools are on state highways. Are you gonna continue with the schools? That's the idea.
Well, the only other school that we found need for when we did the surveys was gonna be Brown on Avenue C for 206. Other than that, we've had businesses, and I spoke with Ms. Privet that, with their photography shop, Ray's Loop, and all these businesses that are along the one ways. Mr. Dorr has complained for years about the speed past his office. So those all right there would require, as Mr. Merrick's mentioned, people has his as well.
Yeah. Along first and second as well, that he could, but you'd have to get permission from DOT to do anything, whether it be the flashing lights or the cameras or whatever.
So I'm going after all of it.
Gotcha.
If I'm gonna go and ask for permission, I'm gonna ask for everything.
Sure.
And then once he gets that, then we would decide what, you know,
Location.
based on his recommendation, what location. Right?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Is this in line with your presentation to the commission?
That's, yeah.
That's the same, okay.
If I don't get this, I can't get to go.
Can't go to, okay.
What's the pleasure of the council on 20?
Chris,
Yeah.
I have a question. How much of the fine does the city receive?
Of the $100, $27 of each violation goes to Novoa Global for their part in it, which is the mailing, collecting, distribution, all of that. Then the city will get to recoup the cost for the officers to process them. And then I believe it's a 50-50 split with the state after what's remaining. Yes. So We haven't gotten to that point just yet, Ms. Rivera's been kind of busy, so.
Got an approximate for us? Do you have an approximate?
We just got one today, $19,000, then we'll have to go through that. So,
When you get that sorted out, will you bring it back to us to answer more
so far, we're
specifically?
dedicated. Anybody's noticed 2 new schools on lights here on the,
I noticed those.
so that's from this road.
I'm not sure that answered your question, Mr. Merrick, but I think it was an attempt.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would like to state that he did ask for support at the Public Safety Committee meeting, and it passed 7-1. So I will second the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Ms. Cordova to accept resolution 2024-28. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Slopes, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
no,
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
yes,
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes our action items on this agenda. We are now moving on to staff and council comments. I'll start with staff. Anybody on staff have any comments at this time? Mr. Moyer?
I just want to, in your agenda, you're gonna have, meeting notes from the EPCOG meeting. We're gonna start doing that if, we have outside meetings that members go to, we're gonna start providing these notes so that you know what has gone on in these committees. And we'll just keep providing you the agenda, and if you have any questions, you can ask for it.
Good, thanks.
Appreciate that. Anybody else staff wise? Mr. Elkins?
I just have one thing, Ms. Baca, I really appreciate your comments this evening. I would strongly recommend the committee that is created for the ICIP. Do your best for the projects to make sure that they are covering our needs. Water's got to be at the top of that list. So, and roads probably second. Pool is probably down there a ways. That's all I got.
Mr. Lopez?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Mr. Self?
I would like to possibly look at rehabbing the water tower. I don't know, know that decision was made a long time ago, but been traveling a little bit past couple of days, see them all over Texas, all over Chicago. I just think we need a backup for the water pressure. If that line, something happens up on the hill, if we need to shut it off, we need a backup. It's also additional storage. It's there. I'm sure that if EPCOR came on board, that would be the first thing they would do. I could be wrong, but I just think regardless, gives it extra storage. It's a backup for the water pressure and just makes sense to use it. The Lime Street tank, those wells on that side are not used unless they flush that tank. It doesn't seem that efficient to me. Seem like it could be more efficient to pump it to the big water tower. And Eric, I'm sure you'll clarify if I'm wrong in the future, set me correct, but that's my thought. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson?
I've been approached by a university about the possibility of the city park, Rotary Park, the tower that goes up. They could, the city would consider painting the tower with EMU and the Rams logo on it. It seemed like this always fall on my head because I'm the only one always asks for this. And so I told the vice president of marketing that I would bring to the council
Okay,
for consideration.
it could go right along with what Mr. Self just talked about when we rehab it.
We
maybe.
really have,
So, okay, is that all you have,
yes, all I have.
Mr. Rackler?
I don't have anything today, sir.
Okay.
So recap.
I just want to mention, we'll have something on our agenda, Ms. Baca. We were just awarded money to purchase 1,000 new dumpsters. We will have that on the grant agreement or that resolution on our next agenda to approve that, and then we will, what did we say, Steve? Hopefully 12 weeks,
Yes.
that we'll have 1,000 new dumpsters. So that'll address part of that issue that you got. So, if that's all the comments, our next item is an executive session action to convene in a closed meeting to discuss matters as provided for under New Mexico statutes relating to limited matters pertaining to former personnel pending litigation. I need a motion to move into executive session.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, it sounds like Eldon may have a comment.
I'm sorry, Eldon. I apologize. I didn't see you.
Skipped right over me.
My apologies to you and Miss Parker.
I had a question for Steve on the 18th and Kilgore intersection. What are we doing down there on the, we're putting a concrete curbing up inside of the cement that was already poured there, or?
We're waiting for a meeting with Jason Burns on that.
So what is the work that's going on down there now?
They're doing the apron.
Okay, that was all
They're doing the
supposed to be
apron.
done on the original project?
Correct.
Okay. Well, just from my observation of it, where it exits that culvert on the south end, we've got a big dirt berm down there that's keeping it from flowing past. I know there's a water line in that ditch, but if we could dig that up and expose it and concrete it or something to where that we could get that to flow past that obstruction of dirt there, I think it'd sure help.
That's what the meeting with Jason's about.
Yeah, Mr. Burns talked to me about that. That's exactly what he wants to go in and observe and look, and said that's what needs to happen to move that water on south.
Okay.
Okay. I apologize, Eldon.
No, that's fine.
I looked down there, I didn't see you guys. So, is that all?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Ms. Parker, do you have anything? Again, I apologize.
Oh, no, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay. One thing that I've always been concerned about, and I'm just going to ask it again, is about the street signs in Portales. Not only for emergency, I mean, just with all the new people that we have in our community, especially when the university starts, that's just a big concern. I know that they've talked about doing that and replacing those and looking at getting something. Again, that's another big cost factor, but do you, Steve, do you have any idea on where we are on that? Or are we still working on getting those street signs replaced?
So we're trying to get funding for that.
Did you hear his answer,
Okay,
Diane?
I did, but they're trying to get funding for it. Okay, so that's something that I would really like to see us get. And I know that we're trying to get, I guess, some that are more sturdy and more apt to deal with the wind in our community. So that's something that I would really like to get taken care of, and I think that kind of helps the community as well. But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think those
that's all.
brackets are made out of like a cast aluminum and they break. I bet there's several local welders around that would fabricate those out of metal to where it would stand some of that.
Yeah, that would be really good. That would be really good about doing something like that.
Okay,
Thank
now
you.
I think we've concluded our staff and council comments. So now I would take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of limited personnel matters pertaining to former personnel pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Cordova, second by Mr. Lopez. Ms. Swopes, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson, Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Self.
He's not here.
Oh,
Just,
okay. Stepped out, okay. Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Ms. Lopez, Mr. Lopez, I'm so sorry.
Twice.
Mr.
Rackler, how
Oh.
about that?
Mr. Rockler,
Yeah.
sorry.
You get to vote twice since Rustin's not here.
Sure. Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
thank you, sir. Okay,
Mr. Shelf, how do you vote to go into executive session?
yes, okay,
Just say
Yes.
okay.
I voted for you too.
Yeah. All right, I need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Self, second by Mr. Elkins. I guess I still need to do a roll call since we have people on Zoom, so
Okay. Yes, Mr. Merrick,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
and Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
and Mr. Rackler.
yes.
Okay.
okay, we are now back in open session. I would like to state that only those matters mentioned in the motion for closed meeting were discussed. And no action was taken and no action is necessary. So with that, we're adjourned.